Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I would like to say thank you for coming to my presentation. It's great to see you all. Let me introduce myself. My name is Khoirunnisa. I am student of Pancasakti University. Okay, my friends, in this presentation we will discuss about common test techniques and test writing. Common test techniques. What are common test techniques? Quite simply, test techniques are means of eliciting behavior from candidates that will tell us about their language abilities. What we need are techniques that will elicit behavior, which is a reliable and valid indicator of the ability in which we are interested. Will elicit behavior which can be reliable scored, are as economical of time and effort as possible, will have a beneficial backwards effect where this is relevant. Multiple choice item. Multiple choice items take many forms, but their basic structure is as follows. There is a term, and it has been here, blank blank blank, half an hour, during, for, while, signs is option distractors. Thus, identify the correct or most appropriate option. The advantage of the multiple choice technique were so highly regarded at one time that it almost seemed that it was the only way to test. While many laymen have always been skeptical of what could be achieved through multiple choice testing, it's only fairly recently that the technique's limitations have been more generally recognized by professional testers. The difficulties with multiple choice are the technique tests only recognizing knowledge. Guessing might have a considerable but unknowable effect on test scores. The technique severely restricts what can be tested. It is very difficult to write successful items because might be harmful. Cheating might be facilitated. Yes or no and true or false items. Items in which the test taker has merely to choose between yes and no, or between true and false, are effectively multiple choice items with only two options, true or false. Items are sometimes modified by requiring test takers to give a reason for their choice. However, this extra recruitment is problematic. First, because it is adding what is a potentially difficult writing task when writing is not meant to be test. Validity problem. And secondly, because the responses are often difficult to score, reliability and validity problem. Short answer items. Items in which the test taker has to provide a short answer are common, particularly in listening and reading tests. Example, What does it in the last sentence refer to? How old was Hannibal when he started eating human beings? Why did Hannibal enjoy eating brains so much? Advantage over multiple choice are less choosing, not restrict or distractors, difficult to cheat, easier to write, and disadvantage are longer answer or less items, produce language, invalid or unreliable or judgment, more time, and large scale. Get filling items. Test takers have to fill a gap with a word are also common. Get filling items for reading or listening work best if the missing words are to be found in the text or are straightforward. High, high frequency words which should not present spelling problems. The filling items can also work well in tests of grammar and vocabulary. It does not work well where the grammatical elements to be tested is discontinuous and less individual judgment. And now we will discuss about test writing. The best way to test people's writing ability is to get them to write. Three parts in testing problems. First, we have to set writing tests that are properly representative of the population of tests that we should expect the students to be able to perform. Second, the test should elect valid samples of writing, i.e., which truly represents the student's ability. Third, it is essential that the samples of writing can and will be scored validly and reliably. Representative test. Specify all possible content. We have to be clear at the outset just what these tasks are that they should be able to perform. They should be identified in the test specification. Include a representative sample of the specific content. From the standpoint of content validity, the ideal test would be one which requires candidates to perform all the relevant potential writing tests. The total score obtained on that test, the sum of the scores on each of the different tests, would be our best estimate of a candidate's ability. So if we aren't able to include every test, that usually actually happens, and happen to choose a task or tasks that the students are good or bad at, then the outcome will be very different. The more tests, a reasonable number of tests that we set, the more representative of a candidate's ability will be the totality of the samples we obtain. Test only writing ability and nothing else. In language testing, we are not normally interested in knowing whether students are creative, imaginative, or even intelligent. have wide general knowledge, or have good reason for the opinions they have. Therefore, for the sake of validity, we should not set tests which measure these abilities. Another ability that at times interferes with the accurate measurement of writing ability is that of reading. While it is perfectly acceptable to expect the candidate to be able to read simple instruction, we have to ensure that this can be fully understood by everyone whose ability is of sufficiently high a standard. Restrict candidates. There are so many significantly different ways of developing a response to the stimulus. Writing tests should be well defined. Candidates should know just what is required of them, and they should not be allowed to go too far. A useful device is to provide information in the form of notes or pictures. Text should not only fit well with the specification, but they should also be made as authentic as possible. When thinking of authenticity, it is important to take into account the nature. Set as many tests as possible. Restrict candidates' suggestion, ensure long enough, and last, give no choice of tests. Testing problem. Ensure valid and reliable scoring. Set tests which can be reliably scored. Set as many tests as possible. Restrict candidates' suggestion, ensure long enough samples, and give no choice of tests. Suggestion. First, set as many tests as possible. Second, restrict candidates. The greater the restriction imposed on the candidates, the more directly comparable will be the performance of different candidates. Third, give no choice of tests. Making them perform all tests also makes comparisons between candidates easier. Fourth, ensure long enough samples. The samples of writing that are elected have to be long enough for judgments to be made reliably. Testing problem. Create appropriate scales for scoring. Holistic scoring, a single scoring to a piece of writing. To approach analytic scoring, a method that requires a separate score for each aspect of a task. Holistic scoring has the advantage of being very rapid. This means that it is possible for each piece of work to be scored more than once, because this is also necessary. Not every scoring system will give equally valid and reliable result in every situation. The system has to be appropriate to the level of the candidates and the purpose of the test. Testers have to be prepared to modify existing scales to suit their own purpose. The purpose is pure to measure proficiency regardless of how it has been achieved. Analytic scoring. method of scoring which require a separate score for each of a number of aspects of a task. Advantage of analytical scoring. First, it disposes of the problem of uneven development of sub-skills in individuals. Second, scores are compiled to consider aspects of performance which they might otherwise ignore. Third, the very fact that the scorer has to give a number of scores will tend to make the scoring more reliable. What will we choose between holistic and analytic scoring? The choice between holistic and analytic scoring depends in part on the purpose of the testing. If diagnostic information is required directly from the ratings given, the analytic scoring is essential. The choice also depends on the circumstance of the scoring. If it is being carried out by a small, well-knit group at a single site, then holistic scoring, which is likely to be more economical of time, might be the most appropriate. But if scoring is being conducted by a heterogeneous, possibly less well-trained group, or in a number of different places, analytic scoring is probably called for. Testing problem. Celebrate the scale to be used. Collect samples and members of the testing team cover the full range of the scales. Select and train scores. Trained scores should be native speakers, be sensitive to the language, have had experience of teaching writing. Follow acceptable scoring procedure. Once the test is complete, a search should be made to identify benchmark script that typify key levels of ability on each writing task. Copies of these should then be present to the scores for an initial scoring. Only when there is agreement on this benchmark script should scoring begin. Testing problem. Follow acceptable scoring procedures. Two more scores to give a score independently. A senior member of the team identifies if there are discrepancies. If the differences are small, the two scores can be averaged, but if they are big, senior members will decide the score. And multiple scoring should ensure reliability scorer. It is important that scoring should take place in a quiet, well-lit environment. Scorers should not be allowed to become too tired. While holistic scoring can be very rapid, it is nevertheless extremely demanding if concentration is maintained. Testing problem. Fourth, feedback. In some situations, feedback is very useful to the students. The content that appears in the feedback can be decided during celebration. In addition to feedback on linguistic features, grammar, vocabulary limit or used inappropriately, the following elements should be included on the feedback pro forma. non-writing specific, incomplete performance of the task in terms of first topic. Not all parts address very superficial treatment. 22. Second, operation called for compare and contrast, pointless repetitive, writing specific, misuse of quotation marks, inappropriate underlining, capitalization, style conversation, failure to split of long sentence, inappropriate use of sentence fragments, handwriting. Okay, might be enough. Just this for me. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.